continue our ultra-wide theme going on with the new Sony 11mm 1.8 lens for APS-C. As always, starting with build quality, this lens is tiny, it is light, it is compact, it is very plasticky. Now we're not talking about like the G Master lens plastics, these dense polycarbonates. This feels very light and hollow. Our focus ring here isn't rubber, it's plastic. Doesn't feel great, doesn't sound great. Got a plastic lens hood that's kind of slippery. Our lens mount on the back is made of metal, and we do have a rubber gasket O-ring. But when we look at the back of the 15G and the 11-1.8, I'm not sure how Sony managed to do this, but we have what looks like a very cheap rear aperture of the lens versus kind of a fancy looking rear aperture of the lens. Not something I expected to comment on, but this just looks a lot nicer, more considered design. This looks cheap, but we are going to be paying less for this lens, so that's not shocking. This is clearly a lens designed to cost as little as possible. Fit and finish does feel nice. It is a well-assembled lens, but overall, I gotta give this a 7 out of 10. Really, the only winning stroke for this lens is that it does have weather sealing, which a lot of third-party lenses don't. Handling and usability. The biggest boon for this lens, obviously, is how tiny and light it is. Let's break it down a little bit. This lens is great when paired with an APS-C body. Look how tiny it is. It's like putting nothing at all on your camera, and that's fantastic for usability. And also, shockingly almost, there is a custom function button and an autofocus manual focus switch on this, which is great. However, manually focusing this lens is not fun because this focus wheel doesn't feel good. It feels like cheap plastic. It doesn't move in a nice way. Conversely, you have this Viltrox 16 1.4 that has this big, beautiful focus ring on it. It's knurled metal, it has a nice resistance to it, but it's also gigantic by comparison. Also, we don't have the aperture ring that we got on the Sony 15G. Sony kind of pulled out all the stops APS-C wise when it came to this lens. They're obviously looking to cut a few corners and make this as cheap and small and light as possible while still retaining quality. But do they? We'll find out in a second. So handling and usability, that's an 8.5 out of 10. We're missing some features, but it is so tiny and nice to have with you in your bag. Image quality. I was not expecting much from this lens, I will concede. I was shocked because in most circumstances, I found that this lens outperformed the 15G. I don't know if I got a bad copy of this 15, but wide open, this is sharper. When stopped down, the 15, marginally sharper. Chromatic aberration, not perfectly controlled, but decent. However, like all three of these new Sony ultra-wide lenses, distortion is crazy. You've got to take that frame and warp it right back to get those lines straight. You're not getting your full sharpness around the edges because it has to stretch things so much. Conversely, we have this new Viltrox 13 1.4. It is pretty close in focal length, but it doesn't have to go crazy on distortion. There's very little distortion in this lens, that's why it's so big. Color and contrast and flare resistance though, very nice in this lens. It takes a good picture. Things always look very nice and well controlled. So overall, I've got to give this an 8.5 out of 10 for image quality. Exceedingly sharp, probably the sharpest in its field or most consistent in its field as far as I'm concerned, but that distortion is crazy. Image character, 11mm 1.8, well, there's only so much you can expect. Overall, it's fine, but when you get real close and try to get some bokeh out of it, it doesn't look fantastic. It's a little bit nervous, got a lot of onion ringing going on, and you get the footballing / cat's eyeing around the corners very easily. But you're really not looking for a lot of shallow depth of field effects and stuff from a lens like this, and overall, the pictures look nice and are not distracting. They're just not terribly interesting, so I'm gonna give that a 7 out of 10 for image character. Autofocus, also very surprised here. Now, autofocus isn't generally that hard with an ultra-wide lens, but this one is so fast. All of these new lenses are crazy fast. They do a phenomenal job, and honestly I found this one even more reliable than the 15 1.4G. It is the most reliable and fastest of this bunch that I have on the table in my experience in doing video and portraiture and landscape work with it. So I have to give this a 9.5 out of 10. It's not like full-on latest G Master quality and speed, but it is close. Value. This lens drops at $550. That's pretty good. That is $200 less than the 15 1.4G. Samyang has a 12 2.0 for $400. Not quite as wide and not quite as wide, but close. And Viltrox has this 13 1.4 for $430. So it's a little bit less. But overall, I have to say, for a weather-sealed, first-party lens, this is a solid value. I'm gonna give this a 9 out of 10 for value. I'm impressed with the image quality that you get out of this for the price. So overall, that gives us a 49.5 out of 60, or 82.5. Wow, that is way up on our list. I was not expecting this to be the real deal out of these 3 new Sony lenses. I don't think Veronica was expecting it either. If you want to pick up one of these lenses, I've got links down in the description below. Feel free to use one of those to help support this channel and feed my fat cats. But until next time, let me know what you think about these lenses and how they compare between first party and third party and value and performance. We'll talk about that in the comments below. So until next time, are you gonna say it? Let's go take some photos.